Hello, everybody. It's week 49 of 2020, and it's time for another episode of Real Time Recorded. I'm Zias Caravella. I'm the co-host along here with my good friend Dave Michaels. Say hi, Dave.
Hi there.
This was a very busy week, Dave. We had a couple of quiet weeks with Thanksgiving having come in, but this week we had a lot of stuff happen. The week was led off by Ring Central on their World Domination Tour, coming up with yet another partnership, this time Vodafone. And so I guess they've dominated all of North America, so now they're going after European partners. This was an interesting one, though, because it's the first of the agreements to actually include all the Ring technology, which includes Vlad's touted MVP, the messaging, voice or video and phone, as long as all three versions of the contact center, which includes the digital platform, the in-house voice platform, as well as the in-contact one. And from what I understand, based on what the customer wants, they'll sell any particular one of those. So they'll leverage in contact when a broader feature set's needed. Otherwise, they'll sell the Ring first ones. Voda does have other offerings. If you followed Voda, you know their one net business is actually built on a whole bunch of partners, including Cisco and Microsoft. And during the analyst event, the question was brought up: are they going to keep supporting that? They said yes, but Ring will become the lead product. And I'm assuming that's the case because they've got existing customers, so you just can't ditch it, right, and move to something else. So Voda winds up with Ring being their lead product. To me, this is pretty notable because Voda actually went through their evaluation criteria. It wasn't just them jumping on the Ring bandwagon. They spent a year evaluating 12 different vendors, boiled it down to 2, and then picked Ring. And to me, it creates just a massive, massive opportunity for Ring because Ring Voda has got like over 140,000 customers. They got 2.5 million SMEs, SOHO customers as well. So this could be really big for Ring, and it'll launch first in the UK and then move to other European cities. But you could, as strong as Ring's brand is here in North America, Voda is that certainly on the mobile side in Europe, and the combination of Voda's mobile knowledge and Ring's traditional UCaaS knowledge creates a pretty powerful partner. So this does follow the same terms as the other partnerships does. It was a $60 million upfront payment, but I thought it was just a really good opportunity for both companies to come together. And I guess we shouldn't be surprised whenever we see a Ring partner with somebody now.
Yeah, I mean, they're announcing these partnerships faster than they can implement them because we're still waiting for Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise to launch. And Atos just launched in Europe as well. So I got Ring Central in my mind. I was right around Thanksgiving. I published that Ring Central research note. And so thanks a lot, Ring Central. It's already obsolete. But actually, it's not because I covered all these partnerships. And I actually said that I expected more carrier partnerships. So I've already got at least one person said, hey, you were right on the money there. So I got that one right. I think it's a really interesting partnership. This one's, like you said, very similar to some of the others, but different in one big way, which I'll touch on. They haven't announced the brand yet. I mean, they've definitely going to be co-branded. All of these partnerships have been co-branded, but they haven't announced the brand yet. I'm assuming it's going to be Vodafone Business powered by Ring Central, but obviously it's not going to be that easy because they can't come up with a name yet. But it was interesting hearing Vodafone talk about this, that you said they went through this 12-month process and they were really stressed they wanted carrier grade, they had to be regulatory compliant, had to be easy to bill. They were looking for highly available
ease of application
solution, cloud native.
Yeah, the ease of application integration too. One of the Voda speakers talked about how easy it was to integrate across their APIs.
Yeah, the whole ecosystem that Ring Central is bringing, the apps, the marketplace, the billing system, et cetera. And then you mentioned the CCaaS elements that bring in the whole portfolio. I really was interested how Vodafone stressed the importance of CCaaS, because there's a bit of a debate in the industry. Do you get your CCaaS from your UCaaS provider, or are they separate classes? And Vodafone felt it's very much that one of the reasons they picked Ring Central was the integrated CCaaS story. So that's one point there on the integrated story. But the reason why this is kind of different than the other partnerships, and maybe in a very big way, is the mobility play. Vodafone is obviously a mobile carrier, as is AT&T. AT&T, with the Office at Hand by Ring Central, has announced that they're kind of working on a mobile integration. So that involves basically IMS integration, for native mobility. Now, the only one who has this right now is Verizon. Verizon offered it. They call it One Talk. When I first saw One Talk, I thought, oh my gosh, this is game over. This is the most revolutionary thing. The idea of having a desk phone and a smartphone with the same phone number, fully integrated, not a forwarding setup. But Verizon can't market anything. They've never been able to take that they've never had the success that product deserves. I included them in a report last year called Magical Providers that weren't in the Magic Quadrant. And it's a really nice solution. But Vodafone and AT&T seem more serious about this. And Vodafone's going to be launching with native mobility. And so that's going to be a very significant play. What I'm really curious about with both Vodafone and with AT&T as this matures, if they're going to open that technology up to the other Ring Central partners. So can I get a via cloud office with an integrated AT&T phone? And I've asked that question. Nobody seems to know the answer yet, probably because the product hasn't actually been launched yet, the AT&T wireless integration. But I think that's going to be a really interesting thing, that if these wireless carriers can leverage that Ring Central alliance of partnerships to expand their own channels. So big news from Ring Central, very exciting. Looking forward to seeing what comes out of it.
Also this week, Dave, AWS held their reInvent event, and you people watching might be wondering, why the heck are these two communications people talking about reInvent? Because Amazon's a cloud company. Well, day one of reInvent, CEO of AWS Cloud, Andy Jassy, gave Connect, their contact center platform, some love, which is I kind of unheard of. So I think there's been a lot of questions about, is AWS serious about contact center? Are they not? I think given the fact that Andy talked about it being one of the areas that's ripe for transformation right now, I think indicates, yeah, they are. AWS Connect is sort of an interesting animal in that when you talk to traditional resellers, they say, we don't really see AWS Connect a lot. But then when you talk to enterprises, it's coming in through the developer organization. So it reminds me a lot of the kind of the CRM wars when SAP would sell through the traditional IT channel, and then Salesforce was in around it, everybody selling to the sales department. And you see kind of a similar trend happening here with AWS Connect. So I think they are going to be a formidable foe. They're doing what they do best, and that's artificial intelligence, right? Nobody's better at AI than Amazon. And they brought together, they announced a bunch of AI features, including something called Voice ID. So, you know, Dave, when you pick up the phone and you're calling your provider and they ask you for your name, phone number, date of birth, social, everything, you don't have to do that anymore. It'll just recognize your voice and know who it is. They've built in customer profiles to make that a little bit easier as well, to know for the agent to have a good understanding of everything you do. One of the really interesting features I thought was their real-time contact lens. So contact lens they announced before, which would actually look at calls and understand whether there was problems with the call, but now it's real time. So if you think of the way contact centers were managed by having a physical person walk around a contact center and listen for audible cues, now contact lens will actually give you the manager a flag and say, join this call right now. And so that they had it was pretty popular, and they also but customers wanted that to be real time. I think to me, I believe that AWS Connect is here for the long term. I do also think they're going to be a much more formidable foe than what most of the industry thinks. And Dave, I actually know you mentioned AWS Connect in your CCAS Magic Quadrant write-up, so kudos to you on that. So I'd like to get your thoughts on what Andy Jassy talked about.
Well, yeah, it's a really interesting time right now. And what I touched on in that write-up on the Magic Quadrant is that all those companies are small. Every company in the CCAS Magic Quadrant are relatively small companies. Genesis might be one of the bigger ones. They're private, but with the major big exception, of course, of Amazon, which is basically bigger than the rest of the Magic Quadrant combined, plus. And so we've got a little bit of a lopsided factor going on here, and I think we're going to see more bigger companies coming, more big companies come in. There's a lot of companies like Oracle or Microsoft or even Google that jump into this space, but Amazon, they've only been at this for a couple of years, and they're like that close to the leaders quadrant, and so very disruptive play here. The interesting thing about that. What would you call it? The identity, customer identity solution?
Yeah, VoiceBreak.
is that it's really shifting the conversation. With the last couple of years, actually even longer, the whole contact center has been focused on the CRM and who could better integrate with CRM, specifically around Salesforce. Twilio launched that or acquired Segment, and now we're kind of hearing a very similar story from Amazon with their customer data platform approach.
The wisdom feature.
Data.
Yeah.
The other thing here is that AWS is different than everybody else. Surprise! They can almost give away contact center. To them, it's almost a lost leader, right? I mean, they want people to have all their data in AWS, and if you have all your data there, you can do different things with it. A good example of that is the what was it called? The not the lens feature.
Well, there's wisdom. There's tasks.
You mentioned it. What's it called?
Wisdom.
Yeah, wisdom. Thank you. And so with Google CCAI, which most other companies are using, is you have to bring your data to Google and have them analyze it and discover it and figure out what to do with it. They're using wisdom, basically. Hey, your data's already here. Just apply wisdom to it, and we can figure out some patterns and some use cases. So that's a very different story. And so I think that Amazon's got a big advantage there. It's actually really similar to what we see in conferencing, right? Because both Google and Microsoft could almost give away video conferencing because they really want to get you into their suites, where companies like Zoom are like, no, we want to charge for video conferencing. It's kind of an unlevel playing field in that regard, but that's the advantage that big companies have. You mentioned the biometrics feature. I really like voice biometrics. We featured that in one of the innovation showcases. I think it was Enterprise Connect 18, where we had a bunch of companies doing speech analytics and biometrics. I actually really get frustrated when I'm on a contact center call now and they say, what's your mother's maiden name? I really have to think, do I want to do business with these guys anymore? This is too ridiculous. Or you ask your dog's name or whatever. I really like the voice biometrics. Not only can it be used for identity, but the voice intelligence capabilities of figuring out excitement or tone or sentiment. Just so much going on with that. So I think that was all really interesting. So Zia's mentioned that this was a really busy week. That was kind of an understatement, if anything. We had analyst events from PEXIP, RingCentral, and Genesys. We had conferences from Amazon reInvent, and we had Dreamforce. We had the Salesforce merger with Slack, and so just a lot going on. Not to mention, I published my monthly insider report, so just a very busy week. But I do want to touch a little bit more onto observations from Genesys. This was my first update from Genesys, analyst update from Genesys, since about 18 months ago. I think Tony Bates was like brand new in the role, about a month into the role, and he was still deer in the headlights, if anything. And I have to say, it's remarkable how much Genesys has changed in that past 18 months. The first thing is the company was just really open and honest. We went through their entire portfolio and their entire ecosystem, and I just felt the conversations were very sincere and very honest, and pretty good conversations for that matter. Genesys has been a little, let's just say they have a tendency to exaggerate in the past, and I feel that is changing, and the company was just much more sincere in their analyst communications. Secondly, I just was really impressed just how many ways or how many cylinders Genesys is firing on. Financially, they are converting to recurring revenue with subscriptions and cloud. Their bookings are up. The revenue is up. Partnerships, they've got these key partnerships that are very clearly part of their strategy. Partnerships with Microsoft, with Google, with Zoom, with Adobe, and Amazon. And so each one of these partnerships kind of a unique set of characteristics that fill different gaps, and each one has a unique pipeline, which is pretty impressive. They have their Genesys Cloud App Foundry is developing out. They've got some like 740 different. Excuse me, I got my numbers mixed up. 360 different partners in their App Foundry now, and some of these are really nicely integrated so that you can do trials and you can get the single bill. Partners and resellers are expanding. They've got some like 740 resellers now. They've got their Genesys API platform is growing. People don't think of their platform, API platform, but they're now hosting, hundreds of billions of calls. It's almost doubled in the past year. Genesis Cloud is expanding geographically across Europe, even into South America. They got the FedRAMP program going, and how could I forget about AI? AI, you can't have contact center conversation without AI. They've got a lot of different AI stuff going on. They got their biometrics, kind of like what we talked about with Amazon. They've got their predictive engagement stuff. They've got the really getting some strong momentum in voice bots and chat bots. And then the last thing I want to touch on is their digital first. In the last Magic Quadrant for CCaaS, they talked about the importance of digital first and digital only communications. They even made the recommendation that if you have a legacy contact center solution that that you might want to look at going digital, enhancing it with digital technologies as opposed to replacing it. And not a lot of CCaaS providers are offering digital only options. A lot of them offer digital with their package, but not digital only. And Genesis has a number of customers that are doing just the digital technologies. And I think that's really important, and it's really nice to see that. They're also got some really strong partnerships with Microsoft. They're going across cognitive services, Dynamics, Office 365, Teams, and of course Azure. So just an extraordinarily different Genesis is taking shape, and it's pretty exciting. Zeus, your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been impressed with what Tony's done to Genesis. And to be honest, Dave, when Genesis got spun out of Alcatel-Lucent, I didn't have any interest in covering them whatsoever. I looked at them as just a legacy contact center play, and as you know, see, I got to work on my noise cancellation too. As you know, from a research perspective,
actually, you don't. I didn't hear any noise. It worked fine.
Oh, then maybe that is right. From a research perspective, I like to focus on emerging technologies, and I did not see Genesis in that world. But they have bought off on cloud, and it's easy for legacy vendors to say we're cloud first because most of the times you don't actually see them be cloud first, right? They're just saying it in name only. But for Genesis, that has been true. They are cloud first now. I think the fact that they've hitched their wagon to all the different cloud providers, and now you can, provision the pure cloud instance, and Amazon, Google, or Microsoft is pretty notable, and they can spin up services really quickly. I think the way they're doing that is smart as well, because trying to build your own cloud POPs is very expensive, where once you build a cloud native platform, you can just deploy it wherever, and then depending on where customers are, you can spin up instances as fast as you need to. So their whole concept they've been thinking a lot about this concept. And when I talked to Tony before this event, he talked about experience as a service. And I think that is, I think we're going to see more of that, Dave. I don't think this is really contact center as a service anymore. I do think it's customer experience as a service, and they've taken a leadership position there. So I was impressed with what I saw. And like you said, it's a much different company than it was even a year ago. And I'll tip my hat to Tony Bates for that. And I'll give a shout out to John Hernandez, who actually reconvinced me to take another look at the company when he went there. Because like I said, I really thought this company was going nowhere fast, but I think they deserve their leadership position in the Magic Quadrant because they've done the things they need to do to transform that company for the future.
Okay, so we've covered 3 topics. We're going to squeeze in one more as a bonus topic. We've got Salesforce acquiring Slack. There's been plenty of coverage on this. So the question today is, did they pay too much? Over $27 billion for Slack. I'm going to take the no, they did not. CS is going to take the yes. I say no because value is what someone is willing to pay. So by definition, it is not under. If that's what it's worth. You got to keep in mind that Salesforce has been trying to figure out communications for years, a decade. First, they tried to go after Yammer. Microsoft got it. Then they tried to build Chatter, which is a great experiment. And then when Mark talks about this acquisition, he always talks about during the pandemic, he's using 3 apps. He talks about Zoom, Salesforce, and Slack. And I was wondering, why does he keep talking about Zoom? He didn't acquire Zoom, but then I realized what he's saying is it's a 3-legged stool to the modern digital company. Salesforce has a market cap of over 200 billion. Zoom has a market cap of over 100 billion. And so Slack is that third leg, I should say, of that stool at 27 billion, a bargain. And he's going to build that out. Slack is now going to have some good money to invest and develop that application. Zeus, why was it not?
They did pay too much. They IPO'd at $37.50. The stock never recovered to that price since its IPO. They were one of the few collaboration companies that never got any kind of work from home bump at all. If you look at the growth rate, Q1 2020, their fiscal year, they were growing at 67%. Q4 the same year, they're growing at 49%. Analysts project that Q4 2021 fiscal year, they'll only be growing at 28%. So the growth had slowed down. Microsoft Teams had boxed them out and created a lot of problems for Slack. And so I think if Benioff had waited, and I think he could have got Slack for a cheaper price. Now, with that being said, I always do believe that if an acquisition is a good acquisition, you can't really ever pay too much. Like, does anybody remember what Cisco paid for Celsius? Right? They could have paid 10x what they did, but it got them into the VoIP space. So but in order for this to work, I do think Salesforce does need to do a couple of other things. I'd like to see them maybe venture into the UCaaS space or even buy somebody like Box. Like Box's market cap something like $2.5 billion or something, but that would give them a broader purview in the enterprise space. Slack is a one-trick pony. That was their problem why they couldn't grow, and they're still a one-trick pony, although Salesforce can probably sell them better than Slack could themselves.
Well, that wraps up week 49. We'll be back next week with week 50, and I suspect, just a guess, I suspect we'll be talking about WebEx1.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good guess. I'm looking forward to that. So until next week.